we are facing a bottom line issue. How we create an equilibrium between human activity and nature so we both survive.
I didn't want to create a new environmental group. I wanted to create a business group that had environmental credentials but focused on business.
I've been a lifelong environmentalist. I looked around to engage with a really high-powered, effective environmental organization, and I chose NRDC. Bob and I met for lunch. It was the first time we ever laid eyes on one another, and by the time we stood up from lunch, we had E2 mapped out.
The idea was to promote environmental laws that were also good for the business community.
It was really astounding, especially at that point in the business history of Silicon Valley.
Our kickoff meeting was with Bobby Kennedy, followed up by articles in the Wall Street Journal and then the New York Times. And then we took on the Pavley Campaign.
AB 1493 came along. It was authored by Fran Pavley.
It was an environmental bill, tailpipe emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. It was an amazing fight in the Capitol.
They said this bill would cause a gas tax of 50 cents.
Demonstrations, full-page ads talking about how California was going to take away your car.
This little assembly bill was essentially seeking to define carbon dioxide as a pollutant. We were sort of de facto defining global warming as a reality.
E2 was right there with us all the way. They were so instrumental in this successful passage.
What we had suspected was true. Business people are incredibly effective advocates. That achievement was a big moment of truth for me, because I realized that a lot of what we're in the business to do is make success a possibility for politicians.
Fishing is a huge part of the New England economy. You know, New Bedford and Gloucester and Cape Cod.
We've seen much less fishing in New England over the last 15 or so years. Many of the groundfish stock have been overfished.
It was an obvious thing for E2 to get involved with. The first time I ever testified in public about the fishery issue was in Gloucester.
A new management plan proposed drastic cutbacks in fishing. There was such intense anger.
There was a lot of jeering and insults.
I got up and I made the economic arguments, as we always do with E2, about how by cutting back on fishing and letting them rebuild, the fishery would ultimately be more profitable.
E2 worked with all of our legislatures. They were very active in it. They wrote columns, they wrote to the local papers. They were very, very important.
E2 opened up a whole new network to us that we didn't have before.
We had to rebuild the fishery if we were going to ever save the whole fishing industry.
We started Ingest about 2.5 years ago. We've come up with the technology of how to make fertilizers using biomass. We're using renewable resources instead of fossil fuels.
Well, that sounds like a great idea. I know right now a lot of our nitrogen sources are coming out of the Middle East, so anything we can do to transition from that and get it to American-made products.
My association with E2 and NRDC has been phenomenal. It's given me access to politics in a way that I never thought I'd have an opportunity to do and have an enormously oversized impact. E2 is always an honest broker of information. It is really incredibly rewarding to meet senators, people high up in the administration, folks on the House side, and build relationships. What makes E2 really unique in this community is the fact that it's not a clean energy representation group. It's people who are in business of all sorts. I mean, every possible kind of business.
All the issues that we work on all come together here in Washington, D.C., where we are seeking to effect change at the federal level.
You might think in one of the worst blizzards in Washington history, it might have been a little bit slow, but the fact of the matter is we got great meetings.
E2 is the most unique organization I've ever been involved with after 30 years of being in the environmental and energy fields as a professional.
NRDC really armed me with the facts. The facts, they helped me prepare my testimony.
They had it all beautifully choreographed, so we were moving from one meeting to another.
When you can see a member of Congress who kind of leans forward in his or her chair, who spends more time with you, when he or she tells the assistant, no, hold the next meeting, I need more time in this meeting, you can tell that person really is valuing what E2 has to say.
We have members that are Democrats, that are Republicans, that are independents. We're not a partisan organization.
They're not paid lobbyists. They are business leaders. They can speak from personal experience about their companies. They can create more jobs.
The short-term future for E2 is a lot of the work that we've done in the last 10 years is currently being challenged, and so it's to make sure that it's properly defended. But the long term is to make this an enduring part of the economy, having environmental performance be a natural part of good economics.
The new energy economy is coming, and we can embrace it and see that the jobs and new companies and new businesses are created right here in the United States, or we can stand aside and let those jobs and businesses be created elsewhere in the world.
There's no choice. We're committed to this task. It's got to be done, and time is short.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.